Hello again, this is Marxist, and this is my 8 precepts of Demoman. Demoman's one of the most important classes in sixes, and definitely one of the most influential over the whole flow of a game and how pushes are done. And also defending. So, hopefully, if you're new to Demoman, this will give you a good little foundation of things that you should look for or work on. Or if you have a little bit more experience, maybe it's, some ideas that you haven't necessarily thought of in detail before. Precept number 1 is rollouts. They're really that important. So why are rollouts so important? Well, a good rollout gives you a positional advantage over the enemy team's demo and maybe their entire team. So it gives you a really good starting point for the whole mid because you're one of the first people there generally, or the first person there. So if it can get off on the right foot, things are going great, because then your soldiers and any additional players that may be trying to act on mid won't have to pick bad positions to try and make up for mistakes that you made. And a good rollout will put you at mid with nearly full health every time, or no less than 130 in general. If you're getting there with less than that after you get a health pack or something, something's not right, and you need to work on your jumps a bit. So your rollout's a deciding factor in how effective you are at mid, and mids are really important to the overall flow of a sixes game. The probability that you're going to win a round increases massively if you happen to take mid. So what will bad rollouts do to you? Well, it'll make you late to mid, giving the other team a positional advantage. Some rollouts will make you a bit later than the other demo by default if they choose a certain other route. So Badlands, if you go into the house and out the right side instead of out of the main door after you get the health pack, then you're going to be slower. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you are ceding a bit of position to do that. It'll sometimes cause you to arrive with low health, so say you take fall damage somewhere in your rollout. That'll reduce the likelihood that you'll survive mid or be effective at all, and that's not a good thing, because you need to be as effective as possible at mid to help your team win. And a bad rollout can force your medic to heal you and forego healing players who could have a much greater influence over how the mid is going to go in the event that they did actually get heals. So a bad rollout not only hurts you, it hurts your entire team and can limit you into forcing unfavorable engagements. So people have to bomb a lot more aggressively to get more kills, or you have to play way more passively than normal. You're going to have to do something differently than what you were intending to do when you got there. And that's not a good thing, because the less organized your mid is, generally the worse it's going to go for you, unless you have tremendous DM as a team. So how do you get better at rollouts? Several people have made videos on how to do the various rollouts. Just type in Cadis or Banny plus rollout in YouTube, and you're going to find so much stuff that I didn't even bother linking it here in this video. I also have included examples of all of the most common rollouts for every map that's played in ESEA as of the making of this video, with video examples of invite players executing them, and they can be found on the mid-fight video of every related map on my channel. So if you're not one for Googling anything, then they're here on my channel as well, and you can watch those. And all of them should have an annotation that will take you directly to the Demoman's rollout segment for that particular video. Precept number 2 is always have a plan and don't take fall damage. So why not just walk? Well, like roamers in pockets, it's essential that you meet up with your team as quickly as possible after you respawn, especially as demo, since any team is going to push your team anytime that you're not there, in general, unless they're in some awful situation. While you're doing these quick movements from respawn to wherever your team may be, you should avoid fall damage if at all possible and move as quickly as you can. Use your ramp surfing skills, because a lot of things that don't look like ramps are surfable, and you need to just basically on a week-to-week basis, whatever map you're playing, the easiest way to do that is just line yourself up in the spawn and practice jumping around the map. You don't need to go to jump servers necessarily. Just try and figure out something that works for you that you can do every time and gets you to wherever you want to go with a solid amount of health. Precept number 3 is never run out of ammo. Ammo Management 101. Always pick up any ammo you find. Go out of your way to go get it. Anytime that you're not respawning, trying to get somewhere rapidly or doing a rollout. If you know you're low on ammo, make sure to tell your whole team that you're low so that they'll leave packs and guns for you. Whenever there's a break in the action, go and find yourself some guns and ammo. Try not to be empty when you're fighting anything. You may get attacked out of the blue, and the only thing worse than a Demoman at fighting 1v1s is a Demoman with nothing loaded in a 1v1. If you know you're going to be pushing soon, don't spam and single det sticks or anything like that. Make sure that you're loaded for when you push. And demand that your medic let you know close to when you're going to be pushing so that you have everything reloaded in time. Because I can't count the times early on when I would hear, I have nothing loaded from our Demoman, and you just can't do that. And it's partly the medic's fault, and it's partly your fault as the demo. You need to make sure that you always have as much ammo as possible, that you're not running out of ammo. It's something that you have to manage constantly. Medic players have to manage Uber, and you as demo have to manage your ammo count throughout the game and throughout fights. Precept number 4 is at mid, use your ears to find targets. So what do I mean by that? Well, before you even turn the corner at any door into mid, your ears can tell you several important things. If you know you haven't screwed up your rollout at all, but you hear the demo shooting at you already, you know he took a faster route than you or beats you slightly with his normal rollout. That'll help you know where to shoot your first sticky without even seeing anything. If you don't hear that, then you know that he didn't take the fast route or he's significantly slower than you. And that can be good knowledge too, because if he's significantly slower than you, then you can press up way more on mid because he's not going to be able to effectively pressure you. If he took a slower route, that's not necessarily true, and that's where your first sticky would go in that case if he's not there, because you want to assume that the player you're playing against, at least on that first mid, is as good as you are. You can also sometimes hear scouts running at you early on, and if they're very, very close, you can start shooting defensive sticks in order to stop them if they're hungry for you. So that applies to other pushes as well, because generally the demo's not going to lead in through doors, and you're sometimes going to need to use your ears to know where that other team will be when you finally decide to push in. It sounds sort of silly to make this its own category or its own rule, but it really is tremendous for Demoman, because a lot of the times when you're shooting at things, you're not going to be able to see them right away. And a lot of early on players don't focus on what they hear. It's so, as demo, more so than maybe any other class but medic, it's really important to be able to hear what's going on the other sides of maps or in areas that you can't physically see. Precept number 5 is to talk about pacing, which is the hardest part of Demoman. So when I talk about pacing, it's the idea that Demoman is a very bipolar class. Sometimes you're playing really passively, and other times you're super aggressive, or need to be in order to be successful. And the events which predicate that behavior aren't always obvious. It's not like a pub where you're just going to be taking the Uber all the time and be the guy that's always in the front. You can't play that way. Or you're going to be constantly dead and your team's going to be constantly losing. And you can't always hide because you're going to be constantly dead and your team's going to be constantly losing, and you're not going to do as much damage as the wantonly aggressive guy. So here are a list of maxims that should at least give you a general idea or a set of guidelines for your pacing. Obviously, every player and team is going to be different, so not everything is hard and fast, and you may discover some of your own sort of rules that'll help you as you go along, or maybe that you'll need to change as you flip-flop teams and so on. If it's Uber versus Uber and you're not the one that's going to be Ubered, you should seek not to involve yourself in the Uber. If you do, you're hurting your team. If it's Uber versus no Uber and you're on the team with Uber, you should seek to involve yourself in the Uber, or at least make sure that the medic knows where you are, because he should finish the Uber around you in your general area. In non-Uber transition fights, you cannot stay significantly far behind your medic, or you will die to the flankers that are inevitably going to come. You have to commit at least a little bit. In some cases, a lot more. In defensive situations, don't allow yourself to die, ever. Sticky jump away if needed. If you die while defending, your team has pretty much automatically lost, and probably will lose the point behind that as well. If you're pushing a point, you should seek not to be the guy capping the point ever. You should want to be the guy killing everybody who gets on the point to block it. So a lot of demos will stand on points in order to help cap them, and if your team's already capping and they're pushed out, you should be pushing up and ignoring the point. If you're attacking a point and the other team's on it, then you need to stay way back and not get into them, because they don't want to leave their point. So they're free damage there, and you don't need to really run up on them. I should also add, in big bold text here, but I didn't want to do it so as not to be insulting, never, ever, ever, ever be alone as Demoman, because the second you're by yourself, something is going to run at you, and it's really difficult as Demo to defeat them. Sometimes you're going to get lucky, or maybe you have really great pipes, but you can't depend on that. You need to make sure that you're always around somebody that can help you with people that run at you. If you're by yourself a lot, you're either too far ahead or too far behind. Make sure that you've always got a buddy with you. Precept number 6 is the last point is where you win games. The last point, where the Demoman rules the world. Every time you push last, the defending team will react by bunching up in one way or another. And this is when you shoot 8 stickies at them and kill everyone and say that you carry your team. If you find that a team is not bunching up for you to destroy them with your 8 stickies, you can fix that by A, having a scout get on the point early so as to force them to stand on the point or let it be capped. Then you kill them with your 8 stickies as they're standing on the point. Or B, have your team try and take over half of the last point map, forcing them to group up on the other half so you control, say, the left or the right side of a last, and then you shoot all 8 stickies at that big group of people. Failure to do so often means that you either went in too early as Demo and got killed, or your team was too spread out and not taking over a particular portion of the map, or no one got on the point to force them to get on it. When you're pushing last, there are 2 generalized methods of pushing, and it's either to have someone run on the point right away and get the other team on it so your Demo can kill them, or take over a part of the map, push the other team into the other half of it, and then just kill all of them, and then cap the point once they're all dead. In those situations, you as Demo need to know which sort of a push you're going to be going into before you walk into last, and that way you know whether you should be looking at the point ready to kill everyone that's on it, or if you should be favoring a particular part of the map and then getting ready to spam stickies into people from that portion there. Precept number 7 is a discussion, more or less, of Uber and crits and what you do. You should avoid forcing your medic to split Uber. Don't act like you have to be drug around on a leash if you're being brought in on an Uber. In those cases, it's going to be some kind of advantage push where you're coming along with the pocket or whoever. They probably don't want to Uber you right away unless there's a suspicion of a sticky trap. Then they have to. But if you get in cleanly and the Uber is popped, don't make yourself a part of the medic or a chain that he has to yank on to drag you along. You need to just go and have faith that he will save you if you need it. You should avoid any Uber versus Uber situation. Help out, but hang well back and make sure that you don't peek if there's someone there that could hurt you. It's really difficult for Demo to do anything against an Uber. and it could result in your death plenty of times, or wasted Uber. If it ever happens that you need to carry most of the Uber yourself, make sure you have a scout come with you or know where you are to clean up your damage. You shouldn't be wasting stickies on finishing players that have 10 or 20 health. And if you're using Kritzkrieg, you don't need to kill the medic every time. Sometimes 1 or 2 kills on anybody is enough. Don't tunnel vision onto their medic and waste the whole crits trying to get one guy when there are more players that could be easy picks. And also, don't try to crits into things that are short range. Demand that a soldier take that crits if the enemy's too close, and that maybe you get the end of it to finish up. But short range Demoman crits are very unpredictable, shall we say. And precept number 8 is sticky traps and you. Whenever you're not actively fighting, set up a trap. It doesn't have to be all 8 stickies. Oftentimes little gardens of 2 or 3 stickies are plenty to slow down teams. You're not going for kills with sticky traps, you're trying to slow down pushes with sticky traps. If they fail to notice that the trap is there, then you'll get kills. But the most important thing is that you're delaying them. Always have a few stickies at least on last, especially if you're trying to push out. That does not mean that you should ever stay at last if the rest of your team is pushing out. Never ever do that. I remember when I was lobbying 2 years ago regularly, the call was often leave the demo at last. And if anyone ever tells you that you should stay at last as demo, you should call them an idiot. Because you have to be up there to get your team to push out successfully. Traps can destroy or at least delay almost any push. That's why you should set them up. Make sure that you get one up and get used to setting them up from a safe distance away. Oftentimes, one of the major problems that new demo men have is that they try to set up good traps, but they're way too close to dangerous doors and they just get killed by something that peeks the door or runs through on them because they see a relatively defenseless demo man. And that's my 8 precepts of Demoman. Hopefully you found it to be a little helpful or at least enjoyable. I should have the final precepts guide out soon, and it'll be for Pocket Soldiers since that's the only class we haven't talked about yet in this format. So, until next time, this has been Marxist.